Good afternoon and welcome to another LinkedIn live stream. My name is Nathan Hill from Next After, and I'm here with my good friend Adam O'Brien. Adam, how you doing today?
Hey, what's going on? I'm excited to do this because it is timely, it's pertinent, and it's got some good stuff from benchmark reports, is what I hear.
Oh yeah, we got lots of little insights coming in. We're publishing week over week as we're diving deep into some year-end research, year-end benchmarking. I'm a little disappointed you didn't take me up on the offer to do a Hot Ones webinar, but we can save that for another day.
Gotta save that magic for next year.
Maybe next month we'll run it back as we talk about the deeper dive into year-end benchmarking. But today we're going to talk specifically about year-end donation pages. We'll weave in a few insights that we've been seeing lately, again, from some year-end benchmarks. But then we're going to look at the anatomy of a year-end donation page. We're going to look at a bunch of different experiment examples showing what works and what doesn't work to increase conversions on your page. Before we dive in, I would love if you've joined, jump into the comments on LinkedIn and let us know where you are tuning in from today, what organization, and then where in the world are you joining us from. I see we've got Megan who's ready to go. She knows that we're going to be looking at her donation page today, so she is right here on time. We've got Sid from Global Disciples. Welcome. Again, jump into the comments, let us know what organization are you from, and then where in the world are you tuning in from today. Adam, do you have anything about the year-end season that you're particularly excited for, or maybe even the flip side, like nervous for? I know it's a crazy season in fundraising world.
Yeah, I think for us as people in a team who supports nonprofits, it's not nearly as stressful for us on our side. But I have so many friends, so many acquaintances that have been deep in planning. I think some has started back as far as like May, June. So this is like the final rush to the start line just to get moving for what we'll see is an incredibly impactful season for fundraising and revenue generation for nonprofits across the globe, but really specifically in North America.
Yeah, absolutely. I was on a different webinar last week chatting with someone about how many nonprofits that he was saying he sees like even take the last week of the year off and close doors, and how much revenue is left on the table simply because of that. So yeah, it does become a very crazy season, and we'll look at the revenue implications of it here in just a moment. We're seeing a ton of comments come in. Anybody you want to shout out there in the comments, Adam?
They're moving way too fast. I can't keep up. I'm old with my glasses, let alone see. I have Melissa here from Reconcile New Orleans. Hello, I don't know you, but now we're digital friends. Looks like we got Andrea from E3 Range Foundation. Welcome, y'all. Keep on pumping that in. Again, I always love seeing how from where across really everyone's coming in from for these types of things.
Oh yeah.
It's always good to see that there is some value in learning how to optimize that donation page.
And every single person is interested in learning, again, as you said, how do we optimize giving, and ultimately how do we grow generosity? So we'll look at a lot of examples that come from a variety of different verticals and organizations, and at the end of the day, that's kind of like the binding factor, is that we're trying to grow giving and generosity. I see a couple I want to shout out. Someone, I just lost it because they're moving so fast. Anna says, say hi to Artie for me. I can definitely say hi to Artie for you. He's on our team here at Next After. We've got the Royal Ottawa Hospital joining us. We've got Melissa from Reconcile New Orleans. We've got David, who's on the board of directors at the Furniture Bank of Metro Detroit. So we've got lots of different types of organizations joining us today, and we're excited to dive in. So without further ado, let's talk about year-end donation pages. You ready?
Yes, I've been waiting for a long time to do this.
All right. Well, let's go. Okay, first things first. If this is your first time joining a Next After, and today a Next After I Donate combo LinkedIn live stream, just to set the table a little bit, what we do at Next After, we really do one primary thing, which is what we help nonprofits grow their digital fundraising. We are first and foremost a digital first agency. So we do everything from email campaigns, year-end campaigns, acquisition, paid media and advertising, retention, the whole works, running digital first programs, not just focused on lifting digital revenue, but using digital as a means of lifting the results of the entire program. And through the work that we do, although we're writing lots of emails and we're putting together lots of ads, at the end of everything, we're running A/B testing and optimization to try to decode what works to grow giving and ultimately increase generosity. So we don't want to go with our gut. We want to go with what the data tells us, which is really what the donors are telling us actually works to move the needle. So we run a lot of A/B testing. We'll see many of those examples today. We also conduct a lot of research where we conduct these studies that we call mystery donor research, kind of like a secret shopper study, where we go take the pulse of what's happening in the nonprofit world today as nonprofits are trying to grow giving and get more people to choose to be generous. We'll go map the full donation experience. We'll see what it's like to be a donor, everything from giving the gift to the onboarding series to cultivation to year end, lots of different things. And at the end of the day, everything we learn from testing, from our agency work, from research, we turn into training like this webinar today. To date, we have run 7,392 online fundraising experiences. This is actually out of date. It's already out of date because it's almost every few minutes that number seems to tick up. I think we just hit 7,400. And all of those represent a learning about what works to grow giving. And we're joined by Adam and the iDonate crew to talk specifically about donation pages. Who better to talk about that with than a donation page platform? I know you do more than just that, but Adam, do you want to tell us a little bit about iDonate?
Yeah, I'll keep this short and sweet. We help nonprofits build and optimize donation pages, right? And that could be for your campaigns. That could be for your primary donation page. You could use forms to embed in your web page. There's a lot of cool stuff, but ultimately our focus is on providing a really optimized based off next after best practices and tests, the tools to help you not only capture the right amount of revenue and fundraising now, but also incrementally grow through these optimization tests. Think about A/B testing built in the platform, no coding, no scientist degree needed to do things that we'll probably be touching on a little bit later, which is great. So ultimately, a lot of the examples you'll see are built off our single column page. And that's because of feedback from Nathan and the Next After team. We know how to go implement that and do that. So if you're looking for one, you know where to find me.
Amazing. Well, let's dive into some benchmarking. I see lots of fun comments happening, which is always exciting. Megan, we're going to look at her page in a little bit. She's prepared to get skewered, she says. And I'll just say, like, you may see lots of, as we dive in and look at some examples, you may see lots of things like, oh, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And that's the best news that you could ever get on a webinar like this or any kind of analysis. Because if everything that we're going to show you aligns with what you're already doing on your page, then there's no opportunity for growth. So everything you'll see today is opportunity, which is good news because that means you can continue to grow the results of your page. Let's dive in and look at a little bit of benchmarking before we look specifically at the donation pages. I like to start here because I'm always a little bit surprised to see just how many fundraisers don't know how much revenue is at stake during the year-end season. Adam, I don't know what numbers you've seen, what you've heard. It seems like most benchmark reports show anywhere from like 20 to 50% of revenue can come in during the year-end season. People define it differently. Some people call it like Q4. Others look just at December. We look at November 15th through the end of the year, so the last 45 days. Is that in line with what you typically see?
Yeah, I've been seeing the 20 to 30% mark generally across most North America based on profits. And I think MNR report is probably one of the more oft quoted ones until recently, which I think that's a really smooth segue into what's coming up.
Well, yeah, so we've got lots of benchmarking on this topic, and we put out a report every year. It's often called Cut Through the Clutter with Your Year-End Fundraising. We look at metrics, we look at data, we also look at how do you just stand out in the inbox and what things can you test? This year, we're doing something a little bit different. We have a whole like benchmark report page. I'll give you a link to that towards the end here today. This is one thing that we found as we went and looked at all the organizations that we're working with at Next After. What we found looking at 2023 was that nearly 40%, you got 38.7% of online donations for the year came in during the last 45 days of 2023. Now, some people would look at this number and say like, well, we don't see that. We only see 20%. Maybe we only see 15%. And the reality might actually be that there's potential here for that to grow. And you just might need to inject some kind of new ideas and innovation into your plan and into your communication. But Adam, this is what you're seeing as well.
Yeah, and you think about all the focus that nonprofits are putting around really planned campaigns. For a lot of nonprofits, this is like the go-to run for, hey, we're making our needs be known. We have an understanding of the impact that these donations, we're communicating that, we're sharing donor stories. Like this is it, right? For lack of a better non-sports analogy, it's the Super Bowl, right? Of fundraising, really.
Totally. You mentioned earlier, lots of people start planning for this season back in like June and July, and usually that's on the direct mail side in particular. Um, the good news on the digital side, I'm going to show you maybe some scary data here in a moment. The good news on the digital side is there's always time to optimize. You don't have to have started writing your emails back in June in order to get them set up to send out in December. You could literally write it and set it up the day before or even the day of. I wouldn't recommend that be your plan, but you could if you needed to. Here's what the data is saying about how organizations participate in this season. So we've been on this like research journey where we've produced 4 different reports under this umbrella of a study looking at donor retention. And we won't dive too much into retention today, but we're looking at the donor experience throughout this process. We made donations at the start of 2023, like early February. And we looked at, again, like the donation process, the onboarding process, cultivation over time. And then we wanted to see how do these organizations try to reactivate us during the year-end season, the super high urgency season of giving. And what we found was that 40% of nonprofits didn't send us a single email during the year-end season, which is just like mind-boggling to me. When you look at direct mail as well, we saw 29% of organizations sent nothing at all, no emails and no direct mail. So there's a little sliver in there that said, oh, we have this new online donor. We're only going to send them mail, which is an interesting tactic. I understand the multi-channel approach. That would be great. Moving to a different channel and using that as your exclusive channel of communication, that's a little bit interesting. I'd love to see the data around that. But Adam, what do you think about these stats? To me, they're pretty jarring.
Yeah, yes. So they are, like you always say, like that's also good that we know that because that gives people the opportunity to change that. But it's a daunting task. Let's not forget how much, especially if you're running a smaller nonprofit. There's not a lot of people to create this, not a lot of resources. So, like, where in the world do you start? I talked with Caitlin from KB Digital a few weeks ago, and she just had a great post on LinkedIn today about, on average, like, don't worry about over emailing people. It's going to take 11 to 13 at least emails over the course of those 6 weeks to break through the barrier. Or like there's thinking about your inbox, how many people are flooding your inbox with everything. Like oftentimes maybe the 10th, 11th, well-timed email to finally get that donor to convert. But it starts with just doing the first one, right? One of my favorite things is like, hey, don't worry about making new content. Reuse your donor stories. Reuse your best hits from early in the year. If you're making content early in the year, it's okay. Like use that as a way to inform. And also another big thing is share the impact. Share the impact of what a donation can mean for your nonprofit and your mission, right? And I think my mom always told me, you'll never get it if you don't ask. So like, there's no harm in starting to plan that, and it's still time, plenty of time to do that now.
Totally, there's tons of time. You mentioned recycling content. Ross Simmons is a good person to follow. You can go look him up. That's kind of his whole thing. His whole mantra is how you create something once and then go recycle it 1,000 times. You can get so much more out of a piece of content than we often realize. Not everything has to be completely net new, reinventing the wheel over and over. I see some comments coming in, particularly questions about the slides and if you'll get access to those. We'll be able to post this recording later and we can share access to those slides. Maybe we'll even link them up in the comments later on as well. And someone was asking, can you show the slides full screen? You're seeing the slides full screen. They're actually built in portrait mode, which is a little weird for a slideshow, but you're seeing all the information. So just wanted to affirm that before we go on. And Sarah was asking, what's the sample size on this? With this benchmarking, specifically looking at like the behavioral, how are organizations communicating, the sample size is 211 organizations. And that's been the sample size of this kind of continual research study we've been on over the past year. So we made 211 organizations, and then we're looking at how are they communicating with us over the course of the following year. So a pretty healthy sample size that puts you in like the 95% level of confidence, pretty low margin of error range. Adam, you took a deep breath. You have a comment?
Yeah. There was actually a really good question, concern about donor fatigue. Not to get sidetracked here too much. There's also, like, if you're getting into more advanced email strategies, segmentation is going to be key. keep your messaging nice and tight to the people that you want to communicate with. Not every donor is the same across the board, right? There's also some segmentation lists that you may want to limit the email asks specifically, and that's up to you and your mission, what you've seen and curated over these lists over time too. That's really important if you think about, and if that is a concern, that's a very viable concern. Nathan, from your point of view and what you've seen, what about fatigue? Like, is there obviously don't send an email a day for 45 days straight, but like, is there something that, is a benchmark for keeping in mind, not to overwhelm your donors?
Yeah, well, in this case, we're just looking at, did they send at least one email? So the bar is so low here. So I'm not sure that sending one email is really kind of a justifiable excuse to say, well, we're worried about donor fatigue. You're sitting out of the year-end season when it is, as you said, Adam, the Super Bowl of fundraising. There is 40% of your revenue potentially at stake, and you're choosing to opt out. One really interesting observation that we saw kind of deeper in the data was that I believe the number was 30% of the direct mail that we received during 2023 year-end season was from organizations that we didn't give to. So there are so many other organizations that are actively seeking out your donors and buying lists and renting lists and part of co-ops and all that sort of stuff to get their attention during the season. If you completely sit out, other people are asking them for money. They're often looking for a place to give. They're just not going to be giving it to you because you didn't show up. There's lots of ways to go kind of mitigate against donor fatigue, as you're saying, like looking at your various segments and considering how do we take someone who's already given and maybe we put them just on the cultivation track for, like, if they've given during the year-end season, continue to send them that cultivation, give people sort of opt down strategies rather than just pure opt out unsubscribe strategies, so they can click a button to say, I'm just not ready to give right now, rather than like globally unsubscribing. So you can continue to cultivate them, keep them on your file, because there may be a day where they are ready to give again, but they're just not ready right now. So there's lots of different things you can do to mitigate against fatigue. But again, we're just looking at, did they send one email? And the answer for 40% of nonprofits is no. And I will say too, and then we'll jump forward here, that every one of these organizations, we've looked at what their tech stack looks like. They all have the capacity and the capability. In terms of revenues, the minimum organization in this data set has $1 million in annual revenue. So there's sort of a baseline of resourcing that's implied with that, yet so many sit out of this most critical season. We could spend a lot of time talking about that. I want to look at this real quick just to sort of set some expectations, because I think there's a lot of thinking in our space and in our sector where we see how much hype is around Giving Tuesday, and we get excited about it. We want to spend lots of time planning for it, and social media campaigns, email campaigns, all this sort of stuff, but we get it out of the proper priority. So when we look at when revenue comes in during the season, there is a lot of revenue coming in on Giving Tuesday. We see 5% of year-end revenue coming in on that one day alone. It's pretty significant. But then if you go look at December 31st, well, it's nearly 3 times as much revenue that's at stake on the last day of the year. If you go weave in the last week of the year, and the way we split this out was like December 31st is 14%. The full week before that is an additional 32%, which is 6 times more than Giving Tuesday. Put them together and what's my quick math? That's 46% of revenue in the last 8 days of the year, from Christmas Eve through December 31st. There's so much more at stake during that last week of the year than in Giving Tuesday. Yet what we're seeing, and I don't have this data for you, is that many organizations are over prioritizing Giving Tuesday, choosing to send and communicate only on that date versus communicating during the last week of the year. Adam, your thoughts on how this kind of revenue breaks down? And I'm calling out my labels. You're right. I mixed up my data labels. I'm so sorry.
That's it. Shut it down, Nathan. Shut it down. I not surprising, right? You think about just the way I think about as myself as I give from a donor perspective. Maybe I'm waiting to get through Christmas. Maybe year-end bonus. Cool. We're going to make sure we do our thing for the missions I support, right? There's a lot of, I guess, behavior behind that. Not surprising in the least.
Yeah. To me, it's just shocking. The more that we continue to drill into this data is how many people spend all their time focused on Giving Tuesday and not the last week of the year. And to restate, because I see Alicia asking the question, I apologize. I mixed up my data labels. I flipped the orientation of the chart. I moved stuff around, and I missed updating that. The big yellow one, that's the last week of the year. The green one is December 31st. And the small little red one, that's Giving Tuesday. So that's the accurate way to look at it. There is so much more revenue at stake in that last week of the year. That's kind of your main takeaway, your main point here. If you want to see that revenue come in, you can have all the emails in the world, the best communication strategy, but at the end of the day, you have to have a high converting donation page, which is really what we're here to talk about today. So should we get into that, Adam? Does that sound okay?
Yeah, let's do the thing.
Let's do it. Let's talk about donation pages. And there is so much that we could cover here. There's so much nuance and little details that we've tested into or tested out of within these types of pages. Lots of little tactics that you can try. But I want to start here with just this kind of overarching experiment. You got version A versus version B. You see the uptick in donations. This is during the year-end season. Version A is more of their like kind of generic main donation page, not a lot of copy. You've got a navigation at the top. You got a headline. You got the donation form. The idea here is we're just getting people quickly, as fast as we can, to the donation form to go make their gift. Version B removes the navigation. It adds a lot more copy, as you can see. It has a countdown clock that's trying to drive urgency. There's a progress bar there before you get to the form to show you the progress towards the goal, which is the way of both potentially driving urgency, but also bringing in a little bit of social proof, kind of bandwagon effect. Look at all these other people that are giving. You can be part of that too. That's what it implies. And then you have the form. So you've expanded the length of this page by like what, probably 3-4x by adding all this copy, and you're seeing an 81% uptick in donations. We're going to break this page down a little bit, but Adam, what are your thoughts as you see a page like this being tested during year end?
Yay for getting rid of that head navigation bar at the top. I think that's the biggest thing now. The urgency and the communication of I can't read this. I'm assuming within there is the impact or the impact equation of a gift or a donation. What happens? The countdown timer subtly to me says, "Hey, there's some time to help contribute to this mission, right?" And then looking at this too, it looks like there's some bullet points, easy to read. Humans read in kind of that F shape where you skim the top, you go, right? So it helps me to understand what I'm doing to help contribute to the end of the year. So far from what I can see, we're looking good.
Awesome. Well, here's kind of three things that I think are important for us as we think about these types of pages. This is not like stack ranked in order of importance, but three kind of key things to think about when you consider your year-end donation page. The first is continuity. What happens when we send people to a generic page, which is what the control was on that previous slide. When we send people to a generic page, we're not affirming that they're in the right place to make their year-end gift. We're not talking about the core reasons why they should give. We're not highlighting the incentives that have likely been presented to them in an email appeal, in a direct mail appeal. What we want to make sure that we do with any type of page, but especially during year end, if you're talking about a particular project, you're talking about a particular message, value proposition, incentive in your direct mail appeal, in your emails, in your advertising, on your website, when they click the button or they type in the URL, they scan the QR code and they come to the donation page, you have to make sure that all those messages are reinforced. Otherwise, they're left to wonder, am I in the right place to actually participate in that matching challenge? Am I in the right place to actually like get that free thank you gift that I thought was kind of a cool reason to give that you promoted in the letter I just got in the mailbox? We have to have continuity to align the messaging on the page with the messaging that actually drove the visit. So that's like rule number one. Number two is urgency. Unique in this season, or really any high urgency type of campaign, is that we can use visuals and we can use language to help people understand that there's a need for them to donate now rather than delay their giving. You obviously have the baked in like tax deadline of the end of the year, but everybody has that. Every nonprofit has that. And so thinking about what are the more unique kind of urgency levers that you could communicate or you could weave into your page, how do we help someone understand why they should give now rather than later? And sometimes incentives can also help you understand, why should I give more rather than less? That's where like matching challenges and things come in. And the third thing that I would say is like an absolutely critical ingredient across all of your fundraising, but I call out specifically here, I'll tell you why, is value proposition. This is the answer to the question of, you know, why should I give to you rather than to some other organization or even give at all? And what I want you to know, probably more than anything we're going to talk about today, is that it's so tempting in the year-end season. And Adam, I'm sure you've seen this, but it's so tempting in the year-end season to talk about the incentives alone, to talk about the matches, to talk about the deadline, to talk about the urgency, to talk about the free gift you can get if you give. If there's a kind of a giveaway, you get a free book or something, all that sort of stuff. We often like to lean into the incentives, and we completely miss the reason that someone should give in the first place. So we have to start with, why should I give to you? Because I don't have to give, and I don't have to give to you. Why should I give to you rather than some other organization or even at all? What's the unique impact that I can make? How can I partner with you as an organization to go make meaningful change on something that I really care about? We have to start there. And then the incentives help you say, and I should do that now rather than later, or I should give a little bit more rather than less. Adam, your thoughts on kind of these three rules for your donation page?
Yeah, the continuity is huge too. And you think about it from the digital perspective. If you're running ads, if you're running social posts, blog posts, anything content wise that you're pushing people back to that donation page, make sure that they're aligned in terms of, like Nathan was saying, the offer, the visual look even does matter, right? You don't want to jar people. You'll subconsciously lose trust pretty quickly. That's a big thing, right? The urgency we kind of touched on in the previous slide in saying, hey, like I love that I see the ticker. It gives me an understanding of when I should be acting or how quickly. The value prop here is probably one of the more interesting things based on the comments. Is a lot of surprise around the fact that a wall of text, as it was perceived, would help lead to higher conversion rates, right? And that's oftentimes around even what Next After kind of, and you, Nathan, have said so many times, it's a conversation, it's a flow. Think about it, how to naturally help people progress down a donation page down to that final act of clicking that donate button, right? But if I don't know why I'm giving, the impact I'm giving, I think there's a lot of studies done around the hit of good feelings and vibes for I get for donating. It's a selfish reason, but you think about the motivation behind that, understanding that, and the value prop, helping to shape that, not just the gift. It's a big thing, right?
Yeah. Well, the thing that's compelling for me when I think about like the need for copy is you just go look simply at your conversion rate. And what we see for an average campaign donation page is about a 16 to 17% conversion rate, which means 83% of the people that land on your page don't give. And so why is that? Is something wrong with a form? Have we created donation forms that are just awful and atrocious and super full of friction? Sometimes that's the case, but most platforms out there today, like we've made that process pretty streamlined and pretty simple. It might be that people don't have enough information about why they would give. And we often see that adding that type of copy to the page is the most powerful lever that you can pull in order to help someone choose to say yes, to part with their hard-earned cash and give it to you to go invest in something meaningful. So oftentimes we lean into this, like what we think is like a friction-free experience by just get them to the form as fast as we can, clean it up, make sure they get their info right away, and then bam, magically we've got more money. But the reality is, like, we can do all we want in reducing friction, but if we don't communicate the value proposition message, we're going to absolutely lose people. We have to communicate why people should give. Let's jump into some more specifics on kind of the layout of these pages, some things that you can test. We're going to move rapid fire because I want to look at a couple like live donation pages as well. Adam, I've used the iDonate tool to go build out this template. This template exists in the iDonate library. If you are an iDonate user, you can go turn this on and then work from this kind of as your starting place. Obviously, remove our logo and tweak the copy because you don't want your page to say, make your year-end gift to Brackets organization today. So I haven't written the copy for you. You can go tweak it and make it your own. But this is roughly the layout that we would recommend. You saw this in that initial experiment. There's a bunch of different things on this page that I'd recommend that you include, and there's experiments to back them up. We won't look at every single experiment example today, but clear headline, helping someone understand that they're in the right place to make their year-end gift. It's that continuity piece, anchoring them to know that when I give, I'm giving to the year-end campaign. Progress bars, countdown clocks, visual elements that help drive urgency, help people feel like, oh, I can't delay my gift. I need to give it now, or else I'm going to forget and I won't be able to get it in before the deadline. Value proposition copy, as we just talked about, meaningful copy explaining why someone should give, not just talking about the incentives. A clear call to action. Sometimes we forget this. Having a statement at the bottom that says something to the effect of, make your year-end donation now. Maybe insert a little impact statement in there as well. Putting your copy before the form. We'll see this in an example in a little bit, but many times if you look at these like larger form landing pages for year end, you'll see a form kind of sitting at the top and some copy on the side, or maybe the copy down below. And it just gets the sequence out of order because you're asking someone to choose to give, and then you're telling them why. And once they've said no up here, it's really hard to overcome that no, especially when there's no call to action below. So we have to give the reasons why they should give first and then include the form below it. I'd recommend a tabbed donation form. So putting the gift frequency up top, using this like tabbed visual to show that you have options and how you can give one time or monthly. We often see that approach leads to an increase in monthly giving and sometimes overall conversion. Security reinforcement. This comes back to friction and anxiety, helping people understand that when I give, my credit card information isn't going to get sold or stolen or whatever. Just a little visual and even text cue to say, hey, your payment information is secure. And then you can reinforce that down at the final give button as well. Reinforce that what they're doing is valuable. Reinforce the value of the gift, the privacy of their information. There's a QR code on there you can scan, dives into like our whole donation page optimization course that looks at learnings from our full experiment library, but specifically over 1,300 donation page specific experiments if you want to dive deep into this stuff. Adam, thoughts on this just kind of general layout? Do you see people using this type of approach? What are you thinking?
Yeah, it's that classic single column donation page, right? Which is it's got its applications and the right ways and the right places to use it. A lot of questions about the value prop still. Someone asked, I saw, hey, how much text is too much text? My answer to that, frankly, is use as many words as you need to get your message across, right? No more, no less. And I know that's a little vague, but let me kind of outline what I mean here. You don't want to sell the impact of donation short. You don't want to sell what your mission is doing short. Use the words to outline that, to tell the story and weave the narrative. Don't feel like you need to get super crazy with it. You can use ChatGPT to kind of clean things up. I do that now nonstop to make sure everything's concise. I say, hey, show me like what this would look like if I'm reading at like a 10th grade level. You want to give people the ability to read easily and quickly and understand and comprehend, right? There's some other questions too here of like, hey, like there's no visual like call outs. There's no pictures. Nathan, curious on, I know there's experiments that have been run adding photos versus not photos or pictures. Like what would that impact be? Is it negligible or is that something that's worth, testing? Imagine that.
Yeah, it's worth the test. And the reason I don't have it in the template is because we often default to not having them and try to get the copy locked in first. It's really hard to get the image right. We've more times than not see images be harmful because they're not actually adding value. And usually the way that they get implemented is actually in a distracting way, whether it's a image that's behind the header that makes the text actually really hard to read. Or if you've got images in line, they're pushing the copy down and they're interrupting the conversation that's happening between the reader and the page. It's also really hard to know, like, is the visual that I'm giving actually impacting things in a positive way? I'm intending the visual to communicate these wonderful ideas and concepts, but as the viewer, as the reader, you can't control exactly how they're going to perceive that image. So you might be communicating unintended things with your imagery. It goes back to that like phrase, like an image is worth 1,000 words. But I like to say, like, how do you know that the words going around in your head are the same as the person that's actually reading the page? It's really, really hard to know unless you have tested it. So I would default to no imagery first, and then test your way into what is the right imagery to reinforce the page and the value on the page. There's lots of good questions about this layout. Some will kind of be addressed as we look at some experiments. There was one specifically about will people be annoyed when they see the wall of text if they have just read like a longer form direct mail piece? And what I would say is that, if first of all, if their motivation to give is already this high because they've just read through that entire long form direct mail letter, the length of copy on this page is likely not going to change whether or not they're going to give. The thing that we often can't fully control is someone's motivation to give. But if motivation is sky high, the only thing that really prevents someone from giving in that case is if you have lots of friction on the page that makes it really hard to enter your information, use the form, and there's errors and all that sort of stuff. But the copy on the page is going to reinforce the same message. It's not going to stand in the way. But I'd also say the people that are going to give to you are the people that are going to read what you have to say because they care about it. They want to understand. They want to make sure that their gift is going towards something that they really care about and that's really meaningful. So I would not be afraid of this copy on this page simply to address people who have gotten a direct mail piece that is longer form. I don't think it creates any harm. It's something you can test if you want to get that isolated, but likely you're not going to have enough sample size to really detect any kind of difference. Adam, should we go rapid fire through some test ideas here?
Yeah, let's knock it out. And I'm seeing a lot of questions. I think Nathan and I will be more than happy to answer those if we can get through it at the end. As there's still so much questions around the value prop. Will people actually read that? Should it be linked to if you're already explaining that in the email? If anyone's anything like me, I need to be told at least 10 different times the same thing before I actually start to get it. So I think the answer there is somewhere in between, I'm sure. But yes, I love me.
You need value proposition. You need value. Can we say it 10 times?
Yeah. I need some A/B tests in my life too. So let's see what we got next.
Well, here's a few fun ones around those same concepts. How do we strengthen the value proposition? How do we improve continuity? How do we increase urgency? Quick little example from a homepage. So not on the donation page yet. Version A leans into the branding of the campaign that says "Change a life, shop now." Version B gets rid of that. It still has the same language. It says you can change a life with a gift, but then it has clear value proposition copy that provides so much more clarity around what the call to action actually is. It says, this Christmas, give a gift that can meet a critical need of a child or family living in poverty. When a family receives a goat, education, water, or some other tangible resource, their lives are changed for years to come. That led to a 35% increase in donations. We need that copy, not just the nice, pretty branding of our campaigns, to provide the clarity that people need to understand. What are you asking me to do, and why is it meaningful? Why does it matter? Why does it matter to me? So that's one quick way to strengthen the value proposition, is with clear copy in your ads, in your direct mail, in your emails, and on your donation page. How's that for a test idea?
There you go. I mean, I can make a change. I think that thing about calling someone with text to be involved with the mission. No wonder that's driving 35% more donations. Nathan, quick question, and I think this one is a little bit of a layup for me. Caroline, hi Caroline. What tools, if we're thinking about A/B testing here, should nonprofits who are either stepping into this world or want to level up their game? Remind me, let me say it right. VWO, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's VWO, which is what I would argue a more complete solution when it comes to going really, really in depth. I Donate. We have kind of built-in no-code tools that allow you to do a lot of these A/B tests within the platform themselves. Yes, I am biased, but also because I have hands-on experience, and a lot of this has been taken from what Nathan is running through here. There are a few other tools. Optimizely, I know, has been around for a while. They're much more of that enterprise tool. A little bit expensive on the side, if I remember correctly, last time I checked. Is there any other tools that you know of, Nathan, that you would recommend from based on experience or really the resources to run these types of things?
Yeah. Almost every email platform has some form of A/B testing tool built in. So that's often the easiest, lowest hanging fruit place to start, is testing within your emails. And there's ways to kind of even run some donation page tests that way if you're driving traffic from email, to say, you know what, version A, they're getting this link to the version A page, and version B, they're getting the link to the version B page. You got to control your traffic that way and really dive into your analytics. But that's usually the best way to get started. And then, as you said, VWO is the primary tool that we both use and recommend. They have, especially for a smaller organization, they have a great starter plan that doesn't cost you anything and gives you the essential tools and a pretty good amount of volume to kind of get your feet wet and get started with testing. So that's my recommendation in terms of tools. I said rapid fire. Let's go fast because I'm just watching time, and we got a couple live pages to look at too. Here's a quick one related to our comments earlier on just the headline of the page. Version A says you can help secure a better future. Version B says make your year-end gift to our organization. It's very clear that you're in the right place to make your year-end gift. Version A doesn't really tell you a lot about what you're really giving to. It's a little bit vague in the headline. There's more clarity about at least where you're giving your gift to affirm that, again, there's continuity. You're in the right place to make the gift that you intended to make when you click through on the button or you scan the QR code or you type the URL in. So increasing continuity with your headline can lead to this type of lift. We've seen experiments like this. You can go add a sticky bar to the top of your donation page, which is a way to increase urgency, reinforce the value proposition. This one we call the humanized sticky bar. It's got a little circle image of the person that's actually saying the words. It says, "I need your help," and then they highlight a portion of their value proposition. It doesn't work every single time, but in this case, it led to a 110% increase in donations. We see this humanized sticky bar approach work about 50% of the time, and in some cases see this dramatic lift in giving. We talked about countdown clocks. This is a very straightforward experiment. Adding that countdown clock during that last week led to a 61% increase in donations. Don't turn the countdown clock on when there's 29 days left to give, because that has the inverse effect. That means, oh, I have so much time, I don't need to give today at all. And then they'll leave the page. Run this during the last week of your campaign. Similar thing with a progress bar. Version B here is adding a progress bar, counting up to the goal. This led to a 20% increase in revenue per visitor. So it made a really dramatic impact. These are most effective once they start to hit the like 65, 70% mark, and you actually see that you're getting close to the goal. If you're at the 2% mark, that's not really helpful for me to say, oh, lots of other people are doing this, I should get on board too. That really says, oh, is no one giving? Maybe I shouldn't give either. So this is another one. Turn this on later in the campaign when this starts to actually fill up. This is a really interesting tactic that we've been testing a lot lately, the past couple seasons, which is going from using a revenue-based goal to using a number of donors-based goal. Version A is counting up to that 100% mark, looking for $100,000 in donations. And I know that if I give my $100 gift, $50 gift, whatever, I'm not moving the needle at all. I've got to give at least $1,000 to see that progress bar tick up, even like 1 pixel. So that's not often the most effective way to help someone feel like their gift is really contributing in a meaningful way. This organization tested, it's a unique implementation of the tactic, but they called it a power hour, where every hour this clock would basically reset with how many donors they needed to give during that hour. And it's not a revenue-based goal. It's a number of donors-based goal, which means that if I give you $10 or I give you $10,000, I can be one of the donors that you need to get closer to that goal. In this case, it led to a 25% uptick in donations. And we've seen this work in emails. We see this work in ads. We see it work on pages. This is something that you should absolutely try and test this season. And then one more for you. This is using a sticky bar for a different purpose, which is to highlight the incentive. If you look closely on this page, you can see that both pages talk about the matching opportunity. But the thought was maybe the viewer and the reader kind of gets lost in the copy. Maybe they don't see it. It's in the middle of the page. It's near a couple different like visual elements. It's been talked about and everything leading people to the page. But using this little like high contrast bar to highlight the incentive actually led to a 44% increase in donations. It's not a new incentive, but it's helping lift the urgency and the visibility around the incentive to make sure that someone sees it and they know that they're in the right place. That's the continuity piece, to actually have their gift matched like they intended when they landed on the page. Adam, that was a bunch all at once. Any thoughts on any of those tactics?
No, I think that you hit the biggest one, and what seems to be one of the main questions is how do we actually make that progress bar impactful and not just another bar? You did a great job. And does that extend into other campaigns potentially, if you're thinking about the big tentpole events throughout the year for a mission potentially? Or is that like, if you use it on every campaign, is it really that cool or like special to drive more donations?
I mean, again, you can always test it. It is a great little visual tool to show the progress. And if you're leaning more into that number of donors type of goal, there's often a reason why that number exists. Like the revenue number exists. You can break that number down into looking at like your average gift sizes, looking at kind of breakdowns of different tiers of giving to go calculate, okay, how many donors do I really need? And that's a really impactful way to go frame that goal, not just in year end, but really in any kind of campaign that you're running, whether you're launching your recurring giving program for the first time and you're looking for like that initial like seed level of people that are monthly donors, and we need you to be one of 50 recurring donors, and here's why. Don't forget the value prop part, but it's a tactic you can recycle in lots of different campaigns. We had a couple people share donation pages on LinkedIn that they want us to take a look at. One of them is an organization called Roots Ethiopia, and I'll go ahead and pull it up here. And it looks like this. I believe they're using a fundraise up form, if I'm not mistaken. Adam, when you look at a page like this, do you have anything that comes to mind right away? Any thoughts on ways you would, things you might test to optimize this page?
Yeah, I'm a sucker for the modal layouts. I just love it. But what's cool is like initially like, oh, I see that monthly is highlighted right away. Cool. I think there's the question when it comes to end of year giving, is it opportune to go for the let's get them to give once and then convert them into, we'll say, longer term donors? Question that's probably for you, Nathan. We'll put that in the back pocket. I do love the impact that they have on the value amounts. Hey, this is helping increase. This is helping doing this. This is supporting 20 moms. Great goodness, right? On the left-hand side, the copy gets to the point. I like to see that's what's going on. For me, what happens when we click there?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm looking at give me one second. Here it is. Where do you want to click?
What would be on the left-hand side with the value prop, the click here.
Oh, yes. I tried this the other day. It takes you to a brand new page.
Okay. So we're bouncing people out. And I think that's specifically for if you wanted to give to DAF, but that's a potential bounce out, right? That was really one of the biggest things I had in my notes was let's just keep them here and then let's convert afterwards. We want that conversion point. Now, Nathan, from your point of view, I know there's a few other things that I probably missed or left out to give you some things to talk about here. What's coming up from your point of view?
Sure. I mean, there's lots of little things that would be interesting to try, interesting to test. I do think, I mean, they've got like the gift handles, $10 will buy 5 children backpacks, $130 creates a school's first science lab. I'm always interested in how effective those approaches are when you have different things on the different gift amounts, because, you know, what if I just want to buy more backpacks? Do I just need to give like $10 gifts, or can I give $100 and still be giving backpacks rather than creating a science lab? So that those types of things are always worthy of a test to really understand how is that really specific messaging working in a season where you have a wide variety of motivations of people showing up on the page. I'm going to swap back to, I kind of made a little mock-up of this page to ask a few different questions. So I'm going to swap back to my slides for just a moment. Give me a second to do that, because the thing that I was really considering on this page is the copy. I love that they have copy on the page, first of all, but I do wonder if there's more that can be done, because I'm left wondering like a few different questions. First of all, I read the headline. I'm wondering, what does it mean to change life? Can you be more specific? And I would look to the body copy to go explain that, but can you be a little bit more specific even in the headline? I get down into the copy and you're telling me my support makes a difference for a child and her family in rural Ethiopia. Okay. What kind of difference? Where are we going? What's the impact? Right now I'm giving and I'm changing life, but I don't know how. So I move on. Every gift is put right to work for a child to go to school, receive quality education. So I get a little bit of that, the tactical, the practical, here's where my gift goes, but how is their life actually being transformed? That's where it ends, for a mother to transform her life with sustainable work. My friend Patrick, who's our marketing director, I think he posted this on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago, and he said something about like, what's the benefit beyond the benefit? We're not just giving her sustainable work, but what does that actually mean for her as a person? What does that actually mean for her family? How is her life being changed other than the fact that she's going to work? What does it do for her emotionally, psychologically? What's the longer term impact on just her family? There's so many more things you could drill into that might strengthen this copy, that you could go test. Um, it ends with this language: your generosity and kindness makes the world a better place. That's very true. And it's also true at almost any nonprofit that you would give to. And so, how do you end this value proposition statement and this copy with something that's a little bit more exclusive or different? How do you set yourself apart? If ultimately we want people to give to make the world a better place, I can do that anywhere. I can do that with almost any nonprofit. So leaning into that like exclusivity piece of your value proposition, is your approach different maybe than other similar organizations? And then you mentioned this too, like, I don't know that you really want people to click this link. If they're already here on the page, on the form to give, you don't want to go send them somewhere else to think about giving in a much more cumbersome way. You want them to give the gift here. If they want to go give through a DAF, you might have another ways to give page, where you can find that type of information. If someone wants to give through a DAF, they're motivated to figure out, how do I give through my DAF? And they'll go find that. But if they're already on the form, already on the page, we want to keep them there. We don't want to go send them out to go consider other ways to participate, especially when they're going to be harder ways to actually complete the gift. Couple quick experiments just on some of those points. This is a great experiment. It's an older experiment, but I go back to it just because I think the copy stands out in a really, really cool way that's meaningful. Version A is a bit more generic. Make a wonderful tribute donation. They talk about honoring Deborah with the tribute, but they end by saying, connect people with love and support. Not all that dissimilar from what we just saw. There's a little bit of differentiation, but it kind of starts and ends with these kind of more generic phrases. Version B starts with honor Deborah, which is a person that you've been kind of following their health journal, health crisis through this organization. You can honor her with your tribute donation. And then the reason you're giving is to make sure that the website that brings them joy on a daily basis stays up and running this holiday season. You're getting a lot more specific. There's a lot more differentiation all throughout the copy, even though it's still only like a headline and a sentence. There's a lot that's changed. That led to an 86% increase in conversion. So those little language changes can make a really dramatic impact. And I'll show one more here as well. This is from an email experiment. Version A, the call to action says, please make your year-end gift to our organization today. Version B says, please stand with our organization today. What's interesting about the treatment, the language is a little bit more vague. It's not asking you specifically to give, it's saying stand with us, which is something that we often lean into to try to drive more clicks. And that's what it did. It led to a 91% increase in clicks, but this type of like vague language of stand with us, learn more, it led to a 50% decrease in giving. So even with the increase in traffic, you're seeing fewer people actually give because they're not set up with the right motivation when they get to the next page. So we often want clarity in our calls to action combined with that differentiation piece in our copy. There we go. So there's some value proposition ideas for you on that page. We've got time to look at one more, and I would love to. I'm excited to get into this one. So I'm going to swap away from my slides. I'm going to go back to my little Chrome window here. So we just looked at Roots Ethiopia, and now we're going to look at Cure Blindness Project. Adam, thoughts when you see this page?
Yeah, I think there's tests on 2-column versus 1-column donation pages, so I think that jumps out to me right away. Getting rid of the top navigation bar, the header bar too, collapsing that would be a good spot. We don't want people escaping once we get them there, right? And then as we go through, they've got the tabbed, kind of almost tab layout. They're like buttons here. We've got the donation amount, so 4 on the gift array, and then the option to do your own, which is good, in line with best practices and standards that we see. Do we have the ability to scroll down on this a little bit more so we can kind of see the full amount of our value prop here?
Because there is a lot more. You've got this testimonial kind of quote here. You've got some charts and graphs down below about where your gift is being used. There's a lot going on.
Okay. There is a lot. So the primary point for me in the donation page is to give them the people or the potential donor or supporter the messages that they need to know about the impact and what you're doing that makes it unique, that value prop. Get the donation form set up to where it's a conversation, minimizes risk of people bouncing off the page, and focusing on that single conversion. After that, you think about the welcome series emails, or a lot of organizations are still missing on that initial thank you email. Say, hey, this was incredibly kind. This is the impact. These are the lives you're changing with this. And then you put them into segmented email nurtures or welcome campaigns. That's where you do some of that education. That the bottom of that donation page is where you can get a lot of that content into a series of emails, right? For me, that's kind of what sticks out. They do have the one-time set up right, and I do think there's a question here in the comments. Don't make sure we don't skim over one time or monthly. What are we shooting for? What I've seen most successful, both not only I Donate, but previous Tech for Good companies I've been at, is that we want to focus on converting the one-time donation first. Then we can start to think about segmentation, messaging, and then cultivating those donors to become monthly givers and ultimately lifelong supporters, right?
Yeah. The caveat there would be, and I think Adam, you'd agree with this, is like if you're making a specific ask for a monthly gift, and that's what people have been primed for, then yes, by all means, please default to the monthly. Maybe make it monthly is the only option. That's something you can test as well. But in a more like catch-all type of page, you can always put it to the test, and you may be surprised at the result. But I would default to the one-time option first with the monthly option available. But you can test your way into, should we default to monthly? Because that may work for you. It's possible. I don't want to say definitively it's always this or it's always that. But this is where I'm going to default to is one time first, and test your way into ways you can drive people towards monthly. I did a little bit of a layout breakdown for this one that I want to share as well. And we don't have to walk through all the different little experiments that go into it, although we certainly have them. I want to share, if you didn't change anything about the copy on this page, one way to move this more towards that initial kind of year-end donation page layout that we looked at would be to do something like this. So this is and this is, I just took screenshots and I cropped stuff and I moved it around in PowerPoint. That's the only magic going on here. You're getting rid of the navigation at the top of the page. You've got this headline that's still here, kind of anchoring. Obviously, you can test the language as we looked at there to say something about making your year-end gift. You've got all your value proposition copy. We're moving this more to like, I'm calling it credibility lift copy up here, related to your value proposition, but really trying to help people trust you and trust what you say. Putting all of that before the form, as we talked about and as we looked at, and then you've got the form following the copy. Even though you still have this multi-step widget, a lot of times what we see when people implement these like multi-step widgets is that you've got a donate button, and once you hit it, then you're just stuck with the modal. That's not the only way you can implement it. You can still embed that on a page like this, and maybe it opens the modal after you get down there and works you through the form. But this gives you a lot more space to communicate that essential value proposition, and then go place the form of your choice, whether it is a long form single step or it's a multi-step. You can always test those approaches. But I would recommend, even if you're stuck with just that modal type of form, you can still use this layout. So again, there's lots of different experiments we could look at. I know we're just short, or just about at time here, and I know there's lots of questions. So I'll shut my screen share down here. We can take a few questions. Adam, is there anything interesting jumping out to you in the chat that you want to chat about for our last? Well, I guess we're right at the top of the hour.
Yeah, right at the time. I think Allison, a really good, interesting question is that what happens when you have the tech that allows you to do what I'll call re-engagement tools or prompts within the certain aspects, whether you land on the homepage and it prompts you for monthly giving, or you're on the donation page, and if you scroll a certain amount of time, those tools, are we disabling those? Like, is the focus purely on that one-time donation conversion, then thank you, and get them into a nurture stream? Or is there potentially tests that have been run in the past that way, pit single donation page versus re-engagement tools?
Yeah, there's always tests, Adam. There's always tests. And you have this one built into your platform. One we've often deployed and seen particularly effective, even on some like Giving Tuesday campaigns and things like that, is what you're making the one-time gift, and once you hit that final donate button, you get a little prompt that does pop up, and it says something to the effect of, hey, before we process your one-time gift, and then it goes into an appeal for why you should upgrade it to monthly. And it gives you a recommendation. Like if you're going to give $100, it's not saying, would you give that $100 every month? It's saying, would you give $40 every month? And it's giving you a unique value proposition around the unique impact of giving monthly, and makes it really easy to go kind of upgrade. That's often a very effective tactic to move someone who's considering the one-time gift to a monthly option even before they've given. So that's one tactic. We've seen those like kind of abandoned cart type of little pop-ups that might follow you around the website, say, hey, you started a gift. Would you like to finish your $30 donation, your $50 donation? Those can be really effective at kind of recapturing some of that traffic as well. So we've seen those be effective. How about you, Adam? What would you say to that?
Yeah, we do have some of that. At least hey, if you are considering this, would you kind of tools within I Donate, specifically around monthly giving, right? So it's not so much as a pop up; it's more of the inline, keeping with those forms, keeping the uniformity. We've seen organizations left 20, 30% more donations because of that single flip on, right? And it's a little less intrusive. I have to say, honestly, it depends. It depends on what works well with the organization, what you want out of that, and what you've tested. Ultimately, there's no one perfect thing for every single nonprofit out there. It's going to take some testing and kind of tinker with.
Yeah, I love that. Always test it. We may see something works 9 out of 10 times. Yours might be unique, or we might see that something doesn't work 9 out of 10 times, and your donors might have something unique about them. You've got to put this stuff to the test. I'm going to share my screen one more time with just a couple follow-up resources for people as we're wrapping things up. So Chris, who's in the background, if you wouldn't mind putting that up, thank you so much. So we've got this kind of brand new benchmark that we're week over week publishing some new insights on the year-end fundraising season. I just turned on the next couple of insights around Giving Tuesday versus December 31st, a little bit on the best time to send an email, if there is such a thing. There's a little foreshadowing for you. So you can go check this out. You can scan that QR code and go check out our year-end benchmarks page. Again, I just published some brand new content on there just a couple of hours ago. So check that out. You can go to benchmarks.nextafter.com and you can find it, or again, scan that QR code. The other thing from Adam and our friends at I Donate, do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, I do have to say with the benchmarks, you caught me. I didn't realize you guys were doing Netflix style kind of drips this year. So I caught myself looking through the first 3 stats last week, and I'm like, I want more. So I'm glad that was on purpose.
Mark calendar. It's coming.
Yeah, instead of the usual tech pitch, we're going to ditch that. What we're going to actually do is this QR code will take you directly to a resource page with a ton of great content around year-end giving. Specifically, a lot of stuff you heard me talk about, like email campaigns at the beginning of the stream. A lot of that's coming from the content that I've worked with a lot of very creative and very insightful individuals. Email campaigns, there's I think Spotify podcast we did. There's an email, campaign layout tools in there, as well as how to build community. A lot of stuff that you're honestly not going to find in a lot of the generic content out there. Scan that. Also, at the very bottom, I've seen a couple of comments of like, "Hey, what happens if we need to get more in-depth dive into donation pages that we want to run for giving season or just in general?" There's a link. The very bottom of that, you can actually schedule with my team. I've taught them into doing one-on-one, kind of what we call donation page tune-ups, really through the end of October, wink, wink, but we'll go into November and December too as well. Doesn't cost anyone anything. It's just something that we want to provide as a resource if it's needed. Everything's, of course, based off of Next After best practices. So you can come and heckle me if you get me in one of those scheduled meetings, but scan that QR code. I'm also on LinkedIn if you have any questions about that content. Such good stuff here, but go there, see if you can't pick up a good couple hints.
Yeah. We could spend the next, probably the rest of our day going through the comments and questions that are already in here, and I'm sure would generate even more. We have other things we have to do the rest of our day, so we can't do that today. But if you've got specific questions that we haven't answered, again, feel free to shoot either of us a note on LinkedIn. Happy to chat more there and refer you to another resource or a template or a tool and that sort of stuff. But thank you, Adam, for joining today and offering your thoughts and insights from the platform side of things. Thank you to all of you for tuning in today. And I'm just so encouraged that so many out there are looking for the new innovative ways to certainly increase donations and revenue, but ultimately just unlock greater generosity, which is what we're all about here. So thank you for your time, and we wish you the best of luck as you start optimizing your year-end